Hi students, today I will be talking about a case study and how to use the SWOT and recommended strategies based on the case study. Let's have a look at the case study of a kombucha company on the Sunshine Coast. The company was founded in 2023 on the Sunshine Coast and is currently selling its products through supermarkets and 8 cafes. The income is inconsistent, but the demand for low sugar drinks is rising. The current business is currently facing some challenges such as new competitors, weather-related supply delays, and limited cash flow. What are some strategic options that the business is looking at? Well, firstly, it's looking at establishing a new online store. And then another option is looking at new packaging and branding of its products. Last but not least, it is looking at a small production upgrade where it is going to start its product production on the Sunshine Coast. Now, what is the first step? The first step is identifying the life cycle stage of the business. Are we looking at a startup or a growth life cycle stage? Is the company a startup or in the growth stage? How do we do this? We got to use the evidence to decide. We do this by looking for clues in the case study, such as how big is the business? What is the business size? Is the business reaching local? Does it have local reach just on the Sunshine Coast or a wider reach, such as national or even worldwide? How are the business systems like? Is it a formal system or informal system? And how is the demand for the products or service? Is the demand consistent or is it fluctuating? What about staffing? Is it a small team of employees or is the team slowly starting to increase? And last but not least, what is stopping the business from growing quicker? We're looking at some of the challenges at scaling the business. Now, for step 2, we've got to go back to our SWOT. Let's refresh our SWOT analysis. For the internal factors, we have the business strengths and weaknesses. These are the internal factors that is directly contributed by the business. What are some strengths that a business might have? One of it is the unique selling proposition, which is the factor in the product or service that makes the business unique. Some of the strengths it could have is the strong cash flow or the expertise that the staff has. Next, we're looking at the weaknesses. What are some weakness or negative attributes that the business might have? Some example is it might have limited reach or aging equipment. The equipment is old and there's not much cash flow. For the external factors, we are looking at opportunities and threats. What are some opportunities in the market that the business could capitalize on? Some example could be a growth in the market, such as rising demand for the product or service, or new technology that might help to increase efficiency. Some examples of threats, external threats, are competition or new legal regulations. Now, we got to remember that in order to relate back to the relationships of the SWOT, the business has to build on its strengths or explore opportunities, resolving weaknesses or avoiding threats. These are some strategies that the business can look forward to using SWOT. How do we create a SWOT template? Well, first you got to draw a 4-quadrant table. The table needs to have 2 to 3 points per section. You have to use a quote, a data point, or specific detail from the case study for each point that you put down. For example, in the weakness of the business, it's mentioned that the kombucha company has limited cash reserves. The limited cash reserve is the evidence mentioned in the case study. And for this, we're putting it in the weakness of a business, which is an internal factor. And then next, there's a lot of competitors entering the market. This is an external factor, and therefore it goes under threats. Now, for the third step, you have to learn how to interpret relationships. Here are some interpretation starters to explain relationships. For example, a key use can start by saying a key relationship is, or this suggests that, or if this continues, it could lead to, or this creates a risk or opportunity for. You're going to make sure that you provide the essential links. So you start with the SWOT and then link the SWOT to the life cycle. How does the issues in the SWOT fit the startup or the growth current life cycle stage of the business? And then based on the SWOT, which stakeholders in the business is affected? And then based on the SWOT, what steeple factors are at play or affected? Now, for step 4, you're going to look at some strategic options that the business could make. We're looking at operations, automating or upgrading technology in order to be more efficient. We're also looking at marketing, which is to boost the brand with a rebranding or a digital store. Next is supply chain, by securing suppliers, contracts, or alternative suppliers. And then last but not least, we've got finance and HR, which is to help budget cash flow or hire staff in order to scale the business. After that, you have to justify using the business criteria that we have gone through. You have to choose 2 business criteria and evaluate the strategies using business criteria. Our business criteria is made up of competitiveness, which is what does the business have that its competitors don't have? Next is effectiveness. Is the business achieving its goal? Efficiency. Is the business making good use of its resources? And last but not least, stakeholder satisfaction. How does the business benefit the owners, the staff, the customers, and other stakeholders such as suppliers? Here are the sentence starters that you can use for your justification. You can say this improves efficiency by, or this increases competitiveness because, stakeholder satisfaction improves as. Now, let's talk about extended response scaffold. You are to write a business report extract of 300 to 400 words, and you're going to use these headings to structure your response. You're going to use a SWOT analysis. So you need to give a brief summary of the key internal and external factors. This is from your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the business. And then you're going to interpret the findings by explaining the relationship, trends, and implications for the business, followed by the evaluation and decision, where you have to recommend 1 to 2 strategies and justify it using the business criteria. And then last but not least, you're giving your recommendations, where you have to outline practical and actionable steps for the business. This is where you are choosing one of the business strategic option that was provided. Now, before you submit the checklist, you have to make sure that you have completed your evidence. And then you have to make sure that you're using business terms like stakeholders, environment, and life cycle. You got to make sure that you have justified your opinion based on the business criteria. And then you're going to make sure that the writing is logical with clear paragraphs and headings. Now let's try and put this to practice by looking at a case study.